Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
You know who I can do without? I can do without the people in the video store.
Which ones?
All of them. They never rent quality flicks. They always pick the most intellectually devoid movie on the racks.
And now, on with the show.
Night of total terror. Night of the living dead. The dead who live on living flesh. The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living. The living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures.
They came to pay their respects.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Why do you have to be so cruel?
What?
Show some respect.
Now they're running for their lives.
A biologist in Stockton, California have released reports focusing on the phenomenon, specifically on that trance-like state.
Every shelter is becoming a trap.
Are you sure we're gonna be all right?
Cooper, you gotta help me out!
And every road out
Don't stop no matter what happens.
is just another dead end.
They're coming right for us!
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to This Week in Geek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, and well, it's the first week of October, and that means spooky shit here on This Week in Geek.net. And over the next month, you're going to get Halloween-themed shows for pretty much every podcast we can possibly produce because A, it's topical, 2, it's fun, and I know Alex is kind of a scaredy cat when it comes to certain things, so let's fuck with him.
Very much
I'm
so.
Mike. So yes, I am Mike the Birdman. I'm joined by, as you can hear, from the lovely city of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Alex, the producer.
And of course, from the spooky lands of Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah, we're scary down here. I'm Aaron Pollyea.
So yes, guys, we are here on Loose Cannon. This is the show where we talk about movies of all sorts of types. Normally it's me, Dave, Ken, could also be Adam. It doesn't matter who's on the show. We all love movies. And in this kind of themed month of the show, like I said, we're going to talk about all things spooky and weird. And Aaron had tossed this suggestion out to us a little while ago saying, hey guys, have we ever talked about Night of the Living Dead? I'm like, yeah, we have, but not the three of us. And he pitched a really cool idea, and I really like this because these are two of my favorite movies of all time. We're going to talk about the original Night of the Living Dead from 1968, but we're also going to talk about the lesser-known remake from 1990 that Tom Savini did, and also had George Romero's blessing. He wrote it and everything, but it's a movie that's not exactly remembered by a lot of people, despite, I think, it being the superior version of Night of the Living Dead personally. And I know that might be sacrilege to some, but go watch it. It's a lot of fun. So I guess let's kind of start out this conversation. Sorry, my foot's caught in audio gear. There we go. So we often talk about where we first discovered these movies. And I'll go first to give you guys kind of a little bit of time to prep. We'll start with Night of the Living Dead 1968. So this one, I actually remember crystal clear because it came to me in the most bizarre set of circumstances that I think I can remember. So I used to live down the street from Marshall McLuhan's kid. And he had a kid named Michael, and he had some sons, and I used to hang out with those kids when I was kind of growing up. So I remember they had a really nice and really big spooky house, but I used to go over there, and I was that weird neighborhood kid who would wait for the kids to wake up so we could go play like Power Rangers or Ninja Turtles or whatever. And I remember one morning I came over there on a Sunday really, really early, and their sons had slept in. And Michael's like, well, they're going to be up soon anyway. Why don't you just kind of hang out, Mike, and just do your own thing? I know you're not going to do anything weird. Okay, fine. So they sit me down in front of this giant ass TV, and our local library in Owen Sound would rent VHS tapes. And I remember this one was just in the VCR, and it was the original Night of the Living Dead from 1968. And I must have been, I want to say I was less than 10, but older than 7. So somewhere in that range. I was just young enough. I'd seen a couple of horror movies. They were still scary to me, but I remember seeing this movie and it really, really catching me. And it was my first black and white movie I'd ever seen in my entire life, because most of the movies I'd seen at that time had been on VHS or they'd been on television or whatever. I'd never seen a black and white movie before. So this was a whole new experience to me. And I'd never knew they made black and white horror movies, right? So I'm watching this and the sons come down the stairs like, "Hey, Mikey, do you want to go play?" That's what they used to call me, Mikey. And fuck, I hated that. But we sat there and we watched this movie and it was just so enthralling to me. Like I'd never seen zombies done like this, because about at that time I remember seeing bits of Return of the Living Dead done by Dan O'Bannon, and I can't remember the name of Romero's partner who worked with him on those movies. It'll come to me, I'm sure. But you know, I'd seen the Tar Man, I'd seen Trash be ripped apart by zombies and then come back as a naked Barbie zombie. There's a story about that too. And I was like, wow, this is different, so strange, so intense. And then as high school would go on, I remember this super, super clear. It was Boxing Day, and our local Music World, which Alex probably remembers, maybe, or were you an HMV kid?
I was Sam the Record Man and Music World.
Okay, so the one by my house in Owen Sound had a sale going on Boxing Day, and I remember they had all the Dead movies on sale. So I got the original 1968 movie in this really cool silver clamshell case. I think at that time it was like the 30th anniversary or something. And there was a double pack which had 2 cuts of Dawn of the Dead, and I'd never seen this 2-pack anywhere since. And there was Day of the Dead, which I didn't know there was a sequel to Dawn either. It's like, oh my God, this is so fucking cool. So I got into it and I literally became a Romero zombie super fan for years. And then one final memory I'll share is when I was a kid, probably after I'd seen Night for sure, I found a book in my local elementary school library, and it was literally a book about special effects. And there was a little part in it that featured Dawn of the Dead with the bluish gray zombies. And there's a stunt that they do in that movie where Tom Savini's character Blade takes his machete, cuts into the zombie's head. The most famous scene in that movie where he's like, "Say goodnight, creep," and he kills the zombie like that. And the book explained how that special effect was done. And I was like, wow, I didn't know they made movies like this. This is so weird. In the 70s? And again, just blew my little child mind at that time. So that's how I fell into the Dead franchise. So I guess I'm going to go to Aaron this time. How did you discover the Night of the Living Dead franchise?
I don't think I remember a time where I didn't know it for some reason. And it's mainly because watching WGN out of Chicago, growing up, like Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, like Svengoolie type shows, where they would show these movies. And yeah, they were edited for television, so you wouldn't get as much, though. Like the original Night of the Living Dead wasn't, didn't really have that much in it that would have had to have been edited. But yeah, I always remember the black and white version at the very least. And I've been generally a fan, though most zombie movies kind of disappoint me outside of like the Living Dead franchise. And even then, I still am pretty choosy, but I've been a fan of Night of the Living Dead for forever. And Darlene and I have even gone to Evans City on a trip, and stopped at some of the filming locations. Yeah, we've even done a review of the original, at least for Earth versus Soup. I think it was episode 65.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's a little while ago that we did our review. But yeah, I've always known about it in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, that's where I should end it. Otherwise I'll babble.
Fantastic. And Alex, we're going to finish out with you. What about you, my friend?
I think I knew of the movie and the franchise before seeing them through other media, either parodying it. Like, I think my first experience with Night of the Living Dead was the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode.
Zombie Flanders?
Yeah, your brains. I trying to think back. I think the first time I saw any bits of the movie was on TVO, like public access or public funded television. They would air stuff. I think it was Saturday Night at the Movies. Because I know they LV Yost used to do a lot of these movies that were, because I think this is in the public domain because
It is. Yep.
they didn't file the copyright properly or something, right? So I tend to remember this showing on there as well as like on a whole bunch of UHF channels, and like anywhere that was like a independent station when that was still a thing, they would show this and then other movies like randomly. And like Aaron said, it's not that there's really anything too egregious in it. They couldn't air pretty much at any time of the day for the most part, right? Like, so, put up a little bumper saying that it's, maybe there's thematic elements. But I think the first time I ever watched the movie in its entirety, I picked up a VHS from, I think it was Front Row Features, one of those companies that just pumped out all of those public domain copies of like third or fourth generation releases. I think I got a VHS in SLP mode, so it weighed like a feather. And
Wow.
in a bin at a Woolco, which became a Walmart, for like $1. And I when I was like 8 or 9, I think around the same age as you, Michael. And I was like, wait, a movie for $1? I've heard of this movie. I think I've seen bits and pieces of this movie. So that's what I watched. And as far as the remake, I, until probably into my like early 20s, didn't know it existed. Whenever I saw the cover, I thought that was just literally like a re-release of the original movie cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
I never took like the time to look at the back of the cover to see that it was a completely different movie. I just always thought it was the same movie. So I didn't see that until I think shortly after the Dawn of the Dead remake came out. Saw that in theaters, thought it was cool. Especially the first part. The first act is good.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the rest is like, it becomes sort of what you'd expect.
Alex,
But
I think we agree on that the Dawn of the Dead remake, that like the pre-credit sequence is some of the most solid horror movie action I think any zombie movie has ever had. And then after that, it sort of slowly drifts downhill. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's what got me hooked. And I went back and I went and watched the Dawn of the Dead original and all this. And then I was like, wait, so it's a remake. And watching it, I was like, is this shot for shot? And then you realize it's not, but it is and it isn't. It's a reinterpretation of the original. And that was, my experience. I went a long time not realizing that it was a separate movie.
I have a story about the remake though of the 1990 remake. So I'm in high school at this time. Like it had already been released, but since it didn't really do a whole lot in the theaters, it came out on like HBO or whatever. And then I think I rented it one time just because, it was my friends and I just watching weird horror movies.
Yeah.
So I know the movie fairly well by the time, I don't know, maybe 1994-ish comes around. And at that point, I'm going to Doctor Who conventions with my friends in Chicago. And at one of these Doctor Who conventions, it's not just Doctor Who actors or actresses that end up being there. It's from other sci-fi franchises. So at this one event, Jerry Ryan was there as an example.
Okay.
And she was great. But Patricia Tallman was there at this event. And she was there because she was on Babylon 5. And she was autographing a ton of Babylon 5 stuff. And I was like, holy crap, wait a second. I see that she has like one thing out from the Night of the Living Dead 1990, like one picture to buy. And I got in line. I was going to buy this picture. I came up and I bought the picture for her to autograph, and I said, I loved you in Night of the Living Dead 1990. And she says, you're the first person at this convention that has actually even brought it up. And I'm like, you were really good in it. And she looked at me and said, they're just so slow. We can walk right past them. We wouldn't even have to run. And I was, oh, awesome. But anyway, yeah, I met Patricia Tallman, and I guess I made her day just referencing a weird, obscure movie she was in.
It's a much more varied role compared to what she did in Babylon, which is for another day discussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's awesome. I feel like there's a void between like 1989 and 1994 where there's a lot of horror movies that I think people forget exist.
Yeah, like I remember when I first discovered Night 90, I actually remember then, this again, super clear. So my parents had this giant fuck off satellite dish in our backyard. Like literally this thing was like 10, 15 feet across. And we used to have transponder channels. We knew the cable guy, we just called it, I think his name was Frank. And Frank came over to our place and he did the programming in the box. We could pick up all the transponder channels. Little me discovered the Playboy channel, probably a little too young. But
as did most people with satellite dishes.
But I remember we found either HBO or Showtime. It was one or the other. And for some reason, this movie was played constantly. Maybe this was even one of the pay-per-view channels was kind of showing this.
You know why it's played constantly, Michael? Sorry to interrupt. It's an hour and 28 minutes long. It fits exactly within a 90-minute time slot. No cuts needed on HBO.
And it was just one of those movies I saw a shit ton, but it really got me in because it was one of the first movies I can clearly remember where it had a black lead, the late and amazing Tony Todd. This is the first role I ever saw Patricia Tallman into. Actually, funny side note, one of the people I used to work with once upon a time, they used to represent me, also represented Patricia Tallman for a while. We shared the same person who did a little bit of PR, but I never had a chance to cross paths with her. And I always wanted to talk to her about this movie. But yeah, I remember seeing this movie constantly for like the summer after the movie came out, because in theaters, this movie didn't do well, but it came out during a really hard-hitting summer or like fall of like really big horror releases. And then the 90s for zombie movies, you did have Return of the Living Dead 3, which came out a couple years later with Melinda Clarke, who would go on to later star in Spawn, and she'd do like a lot of TV and stuff like that. But Romero, for example, wouldn't come back to the zombie genre until Land of the Dead, and I want to say around 2004, I want to say. And then there was Shaun of the Dead reinvigorated the zombie genre. Then we had Diary of the Dead, then later on Survival, which was George's last film. And the zombie genre obviously got super hot again with The Walking Dead when that came out, and I want to say 2011. And it's been a very strange trip down this. Like, the thing that I really liked about 68, again, I'd never seen a black lead in an actor at that time being so young. And I'd never seen a movie where it wasn't all actually like Rudy Tooty point and shooty. It was a story about people that just happened to have zombies in it. And as you alluded to earlier, talking about the kind of copyright, there's obviously the very famous story how when the movie was sent to the copyright house and sent out to the distributor, they had the name wrong on it. It was supposed to be like Night of the Flesh Eaters or Night of the Ghouls or something, and then it got changed, and then this movie entered the public domain. And as Aaron had mentioned, like he saw it on like a Sven Gulli thing, almost like every single horror host, it's almost like a rite of passage. You have to do a Night of the Living Dead thing because, again, it's in public domain. You could literally throw this thing up on YouTube right now and they can't ding you for it. You don't have to do anything transformative to it. I just watched like a 5-hour retrospective of this series on YouTube in preparation for this show. You might say I really like these movies. And hell, I think, Alex, you and I chatted with James Rolfe a couple of years ago about these. And it's always interesting looking through the lens of the social commentary that Romero offers through the lens of current times, which we live in interesting ones, to say the very least. And you just look at, how do people deal with the world falling apart around them? and you see a strong character in Ben trying to do the right thing, but eventually him getting into it with Cooper, and Barbara in the original turning catatonic. But then you see the 90s. Look how strong Patricia Tallman is. She's a leader. She starts thinking fast. She's like, I can't run in my stockings, but I can run in boots. I can take off my skirt and I can put on these pants. And again, they're so slow. We can walk right past them. She starts strategizing, whereas Ben's a little more like, I don't know, maybe we should defend this place. But then the zombies just keep coming. And eventually there's a moment in 90, which I really like. Cooper goes upstairs to grab a television because he's hearing one of these radio broadcasts. And they're talking about it could be voodoo or zombies from space. And he's bringing the TV downstairs, and Ben just freaks out at him. He's like, "You're taking that downstairs." He's like, "No, I'm not." And nobody's listening to each other. So they're in this tense situation. They're right at each other's throat, and the TV falls and breaks. And Cooper's like, "Nice going, asshole. You smashed it." And he's like, "You were taking it downstairs." He's like, "No, I wasn't. You can't get any reception in the basement, dickhead." Favorite line. And Cooper was really actually trying to help, despite, he's like, "You know what? I'm going to have to put myself out on a limb here. We need to know what the hell's going on. I got a sick daughter. My wife's not exactly doing well right now. I've got people to protect, but we also need to have information." So Tom and Judy Rose are doing their best to do everything. And you just see these desperate people trying to get there. But Barbara is the only one who's like, "We've got to get a plan." She even demonstrates to Tom and Judy Rose when she shoots Mr. Magruder in the 90s version and starts wasting ammo going, "Is he dead?" Shoots him in the heart, shoots him in the lung, shoots him in the stomach. Guy doesn't die. Eventually pops him in the head, drops, stops moving. And again, you see that character from this scared girl who doesn't mutter a word other than she's worrying about her brother, who's definitely now among the undead. And that's what it is. And looking through that now, it's interesting how you see the rise of female leads, and just even kind of reflecting upon this now, like 30 years later. I wonder if seeing characters like Ripley and Sarah Connor and now Barbara led to my liking of the really strong female archetype kind of moving up through the 90s. Because I think the next movie I really attached myself to during the 90s was Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street and Sidney Prescott from Scream. And then again, I guess if you want to expand upon that, Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise. So yeah, it's interesting to look about how characters react, characters evolve. I know when Savini worked to direct this, he had a lot of studio problems trying to get this. He's been around the horror convention scene for years. He shows off a rough work print, how much stuff was cut from this movie. But he even says, "I got about 40% of what I wanted to on the screen on this." And some of those scenes are up on YouTube. There's a very famous shotgun kill you can see. And the scene I'm going to talk about, just to give you guys a point of reference for this, is, do you remember when Tom's in the back of the truck and they're trying to get the gas and the burning zombie comes up on him?
Yeah.
Okay. If you've ever seen the movie Maniac, it's like that. It is very visceral. And that got cut because that's all you see is a hard cut. Like you hear the blam from the shotgun, then it cuts to Ben. And that's one of the scenes that was cut. There's a longer scene of Uncle Rege's reanimation and him getting his head caved in again. But 90 has gore, very good special effects, but you don't need to be over the top with it because something you, Aaron, had mentioned, and even you, Alex, the zombies are more sympathetic. There's one zombie carrying a baby doll.
Yeah, isn't that no, it's not the one that that Barbara is like weeping at the end, like pushing away, is it?
I think it is actually. And I think there was a lawsuit involving her at one point, if I remember one of the video factoids correctly, and they cut something from that scene to avoid getting in trouble.
Okay.
But yeah, there's like zombies that are, because zombies are just people, and in the Romero verse, they're victims. Like, you think about this, the infection in the Romero verse kind of like in Walking Dead, though I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't matter what, if you die, you come back. I think that's more of a Walking Dead thing, but I know in Romero, you get bit. Doesn't matter where, unless you lop off the limb like immediately, you're dead. There's nothing that can be done. You're going to be dead in 2 to 3 days max. So you look at all these people, and this is something I caught on a recent rewatch. You see guys who are cut open, guys who have stab wounds, guys who clearly have their neck broken. One zombie that really is pathetic in a sense, Ben hits him with the truck when he pulls up to Tom and Judy Rose's place, and it breaks its back, and it's struggling there on the ground, and Ben has to drive the tire iron through his head, and he's like, God damn you, God damn all of you. And you realize this was just a guy, wrong place, wrong time, and he's in this eternal state of unlife, just driven forward for whatever reason. And again, you get the girl with the baby. You see a naked woman zombie. You see guys who are probably just going about their day, and God knows what happens to them. There's a very famous zombie I think of from Dawn of the Dead in the mall scene, and he's outside the mall too. And it's this fat guy, like literally the size of me and Alex, just wearing swim shorts. So when the zombie plague hit, this guy was just going for a swim. It can come at you at any time, anywhere. And that's the thing too. Like Tom says to Barbara and Ben, he's like, Uncle Reach died today, but then he got up and started attacking Uncle Satchel. And you think about that in Dawn of the Dead, when they invade the apartment complex, they're keeping zombies in there because they think there's a cure for them. They think maybe they can save them. So you see how, yeah, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Now, plot wise, we obviously we're not
jump
going
all over the place. Yeah,
you're not going too deep in simply because at this point, I think the people know the basic premise for the most part, especially if you're listening to us. Like, it is so a few people get holed up into a house when the zombie apocalypse happens, and they never quite say what caused it. They hint that it could be, something from space. It could be something, could it be a chemical? Could it be a virus? They never really let you know. And I believe it's the same for all of them. I think.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't think that they ever explain it. It's not like Return of the Living Dead where they clearly show that it's a chemical.
It's hinted that it's like a returning space probe from Venus, but that's only one theory. It's just the most detailed of them.
Yeah, I was going to say that in watching it, I was like, they give just enough to give you pause and doubt, and that's the basic thing. People are holed up in a house. There's conflicting personalities. There's, either subtle or not so subtle racism involved. And again, like you said, Mike, what probably the 68 movie might be one of the first, even though it wasn't mainstream, it was an independent movie, major starring roles in African American in like what would be, become a big movie franchise worldwide. And it, it was sort of Romero's way of, yes, it's a zombie movie, but it's not only it's a zombie movie, it's the first real modern how we interpret zombie movies to be, right? It's the progenitor. Prior to that, when you talked about zombies in movies, they were always people in a trance.
Yeah, it was always like white zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like you're in a trance, or there's a magical spell, or there, it was steeped in like,
mysticism.
something like mysticism, or it was either like a genie put it on you, or a mystic, or it was something to do with like ancient Egyptian magic, that sort of stuff. And this was, more just a biological threat versus, a specific entity forcing it upon people. So that in itself is awesome. And you watch that first movie, it is more of a character piece. It's outside of the fact that they have some parts outside, it's basically a play done in one set.
Yeah, you could do this as a set play.
And I think they have done it too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I think the original movie is much more a story between Ben and Cooper, right? Like it's just them sort of blowing off each other. And in the 1990 remake, I think overall, all of the characters are way more nuanced. I won't say that they're like super three-dimensional, all of them, but like Barbara is an important nuanced character. You still have Cooper, you still have Ben, you have Judy and Tom. Those people are all still important and actually seemingly have their own little motivations. So I think the 1990 remake actually does a better job with the characters.
Yeah. Like one thing I had heard again through several videos, that when Romero worked on the script for this, he's like, I want another crack at Barbara. I want to make her different. And I like how she's not a kick-ass action hero. She actually grows over the course of the movie. She goes from this mousy little girl who doesn't want to drive 200 miles to visit their dead mother. And by the end, she's taken charge. She's trying to actively get everybody rallied to say, let's get to safety. We don't have a lot of time here. And I really appreciate that kind of nuance with her.
But is still overwhelmed at the end when, surrounded by the good old boy militia people and just how they have no respect for the dead or for, it's just, it's fun for like she's still shocked when she sees that's it's only been a day and look at the circus that has basically popped up. You could see, even though Romero didn't direct this one, you could see that there were seeds planted because he wrote the script for this one as well. You could see the seeds that were planted for what would become his last few Dead movies, where it was a lot more tongue-in-cheek, like they're there for one day, and not only have they rounded people up and they're taking bets on which zombie's going to kill each other first, or there's a hot dog stand. Like, they've turned it into a carnival sideshow within a day. And that's the stuff you see. That's the social commentary you see in his later movies.
I think that the 1990 really does well with showing man's inhumanity to man.
Yeah.
And I think what symbolizes that the most is when they string up one of the zombies from the tree and just start plugging him full of lead and not killing him, like not shooting him in the head, just watching him dance on the end of this rope.
Yeah.
As they laugh and cavort around. And it's like, wow, I don't know. Even as a teenager, that really kind of hit me.
And it's kind of cool because that's almost a crossover with Dawn of the Dead, because it's almost a modern reinterpretation, because in Dawn of the Dead 1977 or 78, I can't remember which year, but either way, there's a scene where Flyboy and all of them are going over and they see these, and Steve says to the group, wow, look at these rednecks, they're probably enjoying it. And the National Guard's out there, they've got beer, they've got fucking food trucks and everything, and they're doing the exact same thing they are at the end of 90. And there's one line that always kind of stuck with me about this. And Barbara, she's recovered. She's outside the house. They're burning the zombies. And one of the rednecks goes, sorry. Barbara says to one of the rednecks, they're them and they're us. And one of the rednecks goes, what? She's like, we're them and they're us. And the redneck doesn't understand her, and she just kind of grins and says, are we having fun yet? And the redneck's like, give me a break, kind of be so dismissive of it. And you can just see, like, you're right, Aaron, these guys, they're having fun. Like, they're not taking precautions. They're being very cavalier about it. Like, to hunt the most dangerous game is man. And now you can kind of do it with impunity. And you see this in Dawn of the Dead, where it's the two redneck snipers sitting on top of a hill shooting the zombies, going, bam, drop them, bam, shit, missed. Hit that gas tank, and they blow up a gas tank. Why not? It's fun. And you just see them fucking around. And again, one of the best things about the remake is Ben, he gets wounded in the fight with Cooper mortally. After they try to kill Cooper's daughter, who's now turned into a zombie and everything. So Ben goes down to the basement. He's wounded from being shot by Cooper. He's bleeding out. He's gonna die. And he goes to the basement and he finds the keys of the gas pump that they were looking for earlier.
Oh yeah, and he just starts laughing.
Yeah, he's like, well, guess I'm fucked. And he starts listening to the radio and he's taking out all these broken cigarettes going, well, that sucks. That sucks. And he's just bleeding out, just trying to enjoy these last moments of life. And the zombie of Cooper's wife, Valerie, I think her name is, comes around the corner, takes his last bullet, kills her. Now he can't even kill himself. So the end of this movie happens, and Barbara and the rednecks are clearing the house, and she sees Ben, who's clearly turned, and one of the rednecks takes him out with his rifle. And Barbara's obviously distraught. Cooper in this one has survived. He hid upstairs in an attic, which would have been smart from the very fucking beginning, but I digress. So he comes down the stairs, and Cooper knows that she ran the night before, and he's so happy. You came back, and he's just overjoyed. And Barbara just pulls out her pistol, just puts one between his eyes, and Barbara walks out. The two rednecks kind of look at each other. They're like, "What the hell was that?" Just another one for the fire. Those rednecks fucking knew she just murdered somebody.
Well, and that's the line that was said in the first movie at the very end.
Yeah,
when the sheriff kills Ben.
Mhm.
So they put a bit of a twist on it. You know, so it's not just shot for shot. It's 90% the same movie, but gussied up really well.
Remixed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's really clever. And I'm honestly surprised how well 90 still holds up. I mean, yeah, there's a couple of famous gaffes in this. Like, there's one example. You can see the camera person in the kitchen in the reflection of a glass window. Shit happens,
that's no
right?
big deal.
Exactly. Shit happens. But when you look at how much love I really feel was put into this, I'd really like to see what Savini could have done had he been allowed to do everything he wanted to.
You know what though, dude?
Mm.
I almost feel like this is one of the cases where less is more.
Yeah, like it works.
I love, you know me, I'm the guy that loves all the Cronenberg stuff. I know that it's squishy and gross, and I know that Aaron doesn't care for that stuff. But I love it when in my head it makes sense. It's weird. As much as I would love to see more zombie movies and all this with gore and crazy special effects, and Savini's so good at that, I almost feel like this is a weird case where I think the studio meddling actually helped the movie.
Yeah, like it
personally,
works.
I think it had enough gore. It was enough.
Yeah.
There was blood. There was guts. There was dismembered limbs. That's what you need. But you don't need it so much that it's in every single shot because it's distracting from the human story that's trying to be told.
I would be interested to see if he was able to complete his original cut, like have both exist, and then you could really do a watch and just see whether, you know, his original vision worked as much, or, you know, again, I'm thinking maybe because he was a makeup artist mostly, right? Like, and special effects artist, that he probably wanted to showcase his crazy effects like a lot, but maybe he wouldn't have had the eye for keeping the movie as tight as it needed to be. Sure, it probably would have been, you know, an hour and 50 minutes long or something versus an hour and 28. But I'm wondering, this might be one of the very few cases I can think of where studio meddling and censorship might have actually helped.
Yeah, from the footage I've seen on YouTube, which you can see, and not all of it has audio because it's been lost to time, because this is from a work print from many, many, many years ago. It didn't add a whole lot. Like I said, yeah, there's some gore, and it's fine at best. Like I said, you get a shotgun kill. It's pretty violent. Like I said, it kind of reminds me of Maniac, but not as explosive as, say, the headshot in the apartment in Dawn of the Dead. But yeah, like here it moves at a really brisk pace. One thing I really love about 90 compared to 68 is you're never bored. Things keep moving, characters keep going, and it's engaging enough that you care about what happens to these people. And the fact that you never get a concrete answer as to why this is happening is what I love. One of the things I loved about the Dawn of the Dead remake by Zack Snyder and James Gunn back in 2004 is special features. There are two. One is called Andy's Lost Tapes, where it's the gun store owner, Andy, talking about his experiences prior to him being rescued, quote unquote, and then getting infected. But another one is the 27 hours leading up to all emergency broadcast stations going off the air, to which Tom Savini has a cameo. Ken Foree has a cameo. The guy who played Roger, Scott something or other, I can't remember his name. But either way, it shows what happens when the world falls apart. And it's kind of amazing in that regard. But Night in 68 and 90 give you just enough to make you decide your own mind. One of my favorite lines of the entire franchise is when Peter is standing on the mall ledge, and he says, "When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth." And Steven's like, "What?" "Voodoo," he says. "It's something my granddad used to say. He was a priest in Trinidad." And he talks about this as divine judgment. And then even in Day of the Dead, one of the helicopter pilots says, "Maybe we were getting too big for our britches. Maybe this is God's way of saying, you're not the ones in charge. I am." And it's interesting because when you're in a zombie situation, you look at a show like, say, The Walking Dead and how it's progressed through its many spin-offs and supplementary media. Does it tell a good human story? At times. There are some really cool characters.
First 3 or 4 seasons, probably.
Yeah, there are some good character stories mixed in there, but the problem is its spectacle overtakes the humanity. When a movie you only have less than 2 hours to work with, you better tell a concise story. And the Dead movies, at least the first 3, are really good. Hell, I really even enjoyed Diary. I actually interviewed Joel Dinnicole like 15 years back. And again, I really liked his character. He was the guy with the glasses in that movie. I can't remember what his character's name was, but yeah, like there's something to learn about yourself, about each other. What are you going to do when the chips are down? Are you willing to work with those you wouldn't necessarily get along with to survive when the world is literally turning to crap outside your window? I mean, these movies popularized, well, what's your zombie plan? Hell, author Max Brooks wrote the Zombie Survival Handbook. I have interviewed him a couple times. I've got a signed copy of the book around here somewhere. And yeah, it's amazing how much zombies permeated culture for so long. Hell, like I said, we had Walking Dead, we had Z Nation. I think there was talk of a return. I think next year, I want to say in 2026, there's a remake of Return of the Living Dead. Hell, that may even be coming out this Christmas. I'm not 100% sure.
28 weeks later, and all the faster zombie stuff. There's a new one of that. Was it is it 28 months later they're calling it now or something?
28 years later.
28 years.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You've got that. There's been some over the top, like
Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, there's been a lot of those, but I think what you hit on, Mike, is what makes even the original movie scarier than a lot of the monster movies out there is it is completely unknown. You never find out what caused it. It's something that could happen. Like you look at it now and through our lens of 5 years on from COVID, it's kind of like COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Like how not necessarily in the exact methodology or how it happens. It's just those first few months, if you remember, like March through May of 2020, when nobody knew what the hell was going on. Like, think about how we would have reacted had we not had mass communication with the internet.
Yeah, I remember one popular phrase that came out during COVID, and it relates directly back to zombies. I remember one phrase that was popular online was, "You're the type of person who would hide a zombie bite." And that might refer to someone who isn't masking or following proper masking like kind of protocols. And even now, as we approach the anniversary of COVID, have we learned anything? I don't know.
But one thing I heard that's related to that is that if this was, I totally understand why the zombie apocalypse can happen now in the movies and not think, because I heard that from somebody because they were saying before then, no one understood how like slow zombies could ever win. Like, how is this possible? especially in America, if it started in America, because there's so many guns and bullets and everyone has this stuff. Well, it's probably because people would deny it was happening.
Yep.
Would ignore it, would do nothing to stop it because, yeah, it's just a pain in the butt.
There is a alternate cut of Dawn of the Dead that was done by Dario Argento. And if you guys remember, there's two TV personalities, not the ones in the beginning, but one when they're in the mall. It's this guy, Dr. Millard Rausch, and he's talking with another gentleman. And he says, the reason the zombies are going to win is because we can't do what needs to be done. We are too emotional. We are connected to things that cannot feel. We are connected to something that does not react like us. And a person pipes up from the audience like, well, won't they run out of food? And he says, young lady, they won't, because we're still alive. Why don't we drop bombs in all the big cities? This is where all the creatures tend to congregate. Maybe we could get a chance to get a foothold. But by the time Day of the Dead rolls around, Dr. Logan, Dr. Frankenstein says, well, they outnumber the living something like 400,000 to 1 by his calculations. And I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Well, and it's like, even something more contemporary, you have The Last of Us, right? And the adaptation that was for television, at the very beginning when they discover, that it's the cordyceps, virus, whatever, it's not the same origin. They have an origin, but when they ask the virologist and there's a specific term, I forget the name of the scientist where their job is to study basically.
Virologist?
It's not just virology. It's like highly communicable disease specialist, whatever. And that's in, I believe, Indonesia. And like she sits there looking at what it can do, and they're like, this can't jump from human to human. They're like, well, it already has. And she just sits there, looks, and they're like, well, so what do we do to stop it? And she just says, bomb, like kill everybody in the entire infected area. And I was like, watching that recently, in the last couple of years, that hit me. I was like, whoa, really, if that's the solution, you're right. People won't. They'll wait till it's too late because they're afraid of what would have to happen. And it's horrible that it would have to happen. But you've got to consider that movie in 1968, no internet. You have radio and television, but you're limited by
range
who can get
and power,
range, power, who can get it, who has it, who in 68, in 1968, not everybody in rural areas had a television. Like, what I mean? If you're rural, poor, you either not have a television or you might have a television, but you might not be able to get any stations, only certain times of the day, or maybe a low powered local station, not a rebroadcast. Like,
honestly, 1960s, depending on where you are in Appalachia, you might not even have electricity.
Yeah. And one thing that the Diary of the Dead movie that came out in 2007, which was essentially a third remake of Night of the Living Dead, but from the more modern era, they're editing this together like a documentary and uploading it to YouTube, which was a phenomenon at the time because they're talking about website hits like fucking views. It's really weird to go back and watch that movie again. But it's kind of strange because now you think about that. We know, Alex, you and I both know extensively, people would troll this despite the seriousness of the situation. It would get out on 4chan. It would get out on all these other terrible websites and people would deny it's happening. Or there's a point in Day of the Dead, Dawn, where they're talking about rescue stations are out of date. People would say, oh yeah, go here. It's totally fine. And they would purposely do it to kill people because people are sadistic.
Well, you'd have that, but we have the advantage of, living through a worldwide pandemic where we know that what has helped is communication. What is also, I think, what saved us our sanity was being able to stay in constant contact with friends and family over long distances. Hell, we converted our entire podcast to recording remotely entirely. Where it used to be, most of it was done in person, and then we would get connect online if we had people that were recording with us remotely. But, we switched to this. So like we've lived through it, and thank God for mass communication. It can be terrible, but like you mentioned, but it could also be, great. So I see this and I think you could redo these movies. You'd have to tweak things, obviously, to account for, what's happening in modern times. Because with 90, we're looking at 35 years ago, which the world of 35 years ago may as well be 60 years ago.
Yeah, it's a
when it
different
comes.
world. Yeah,
And-
I always say like pre fall of the Soviet Union, it's a very different world.
Yeah, and you got to consider like most people, even 1995, the internet had been around. Most people still didn't have dial-up. I got the internet in 1999 or 2000. We had dial-up for like 1 year, and then we went to high speed, and we were, one of the few families that went to high speed. Realizing that like most of America didn't switch to broadband until the mid 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, I moved out in the late 90s into my own place. I didn't get cable internet until 99, 2000.
And that's literally 5 to 10 years before the vast majority of people in North America switched to an always on, where you didn't have to dial in, even DSL. You didn't have to dial in. You're just always connected. The smartphone and the always connected internet changed how we think of things. So it is really a completely different world. So you could redo it. So it is fascinating to watch these two movies and see how, when 1990 came out, it must have, I didn't see it initially when it first came out. You guys did. It must have felt very modern and different from the original. But looking at them now back to back, they very much feel like they come from the same era.
Yeah.
Even though they are, 20 some odd years apart.
Yeah, like even to look at 68 to 90 to 2007 with Diary of the Dead, if you were to remake this movie today, it wouldn't be kids uploading it to YouTube. It would be people uploading it to TikTok, to social media.
It wouldn't be that. It would be live streaming the whole time.
On Twitch, yeah. And that's a vastly different movie than Diary, because like, what do you do? Why are you becoming an influencer in the worst time? Hell, there was it was a Japanese zombie movie or a Korean zombie movie I watched a couple of years ago. And there was a guy live streaming during all this. He's the only person on the internet still gaming. And he's like, look at all these hits I'm getting. I'm like, the world's falling apart, for fuck's sakes. But yeah, like these movies, they are incredible. They are timeless. They are both worth watching. I will even put watch it if you can find it. Diary of the Dead. Don't go out and buy the Blu-ray or anything. But it is worth watching. If you can find it to stream it, even rent it, totally worth it. And watch all three.
And as you said, you can easily watch the first one anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like it is so easy to find. 1990, there was a Blu-ray that came out a couple of years ago as of this recording.
And
it is a little darker, which not a lot of people are happy with. But I know there was a Shout Factory re-release, I want to say in the last couple of years too, that does look significantly better. But it is available to rent in other places and stream. I think it's available to stream in the US. But it is totally worth it, guys. Like seriously, these movies are timeless. I will never turn down an opportunity to talk about these. So now I've had a chance to talk about these movies with almost all my friends now. And I mean, really like it.
And we've recently in the last year lost Tony Todd.
Mm-hmm.
So, he an icon in horror films, where I feel like this is a role that most people don't know he was in or remember him from, because we know him basically as always playing the villain. And in this, I mean, you could say it's one of his few protagonist roles.
Yeah, like this isn't Candyman. This isn't the Final Destination movies. This isn't even Star Trek. This is something different. And the last things I remember Tony Todd from are Final Destination and Spider-Man 2, where he was the voice of Venom. So this is outstanding. Like, it's a fantastic movie. Please check it out.
Yeah.
If you happen to see Patricia Tallman at a convention, she's still doing conventions, which I'm pretty sure she is. Ask her about this. I think she'd really enjoy that. So I guess closing thoughts. Let's start with Aaron, and then we'll go to Alex.
My closing thoughts are both of these movies are fantastic. I really don't know which one I like better. Darlene would probably argue that the original 1968 version is the best, but I like them for different reasons. I like the first one for the weird and unsettling atmosphere and the just really kind of groundbreaking social commentary, whereas the 1990, I really like the character work that's in it and the breakneck pacing. I guess my final thoughts would be, if you ever have a chance to go to Evans City, do so. The cemetery that the original was filmed at is still there. Darlene and I have been there, and it's actually upsetting driving to it because it actually feels like you're in the film because it still looks almost exactly the same.
Oh, wow.
Even to like the point where you turn off and drive up the hill to go into the cemetery. It's kind of chilling. It's kind of chilling, but it's worth it. So those are my thoughts.
Alex?
I would say I'm kind of torn. I do think the original is a great watch. I think if you're going to try to get, let's say, somebody born where their birth year starts with a 2, it's going to be a hard sell in its pacing. It is a longer movie by about 10 minutes or so, I think, than the 1990 remake. But it does have its slow parts. Obviously they were padding some parts for their budget and just trying to make it. It's also, it's essentially a student film, right? Or a first feature from people that were students. I think that 90 is a good place to start. Is it going to be the best like zombie movie to introduce younger generations to? Maybe, honestly.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's not overly too gory for people that might be queasy or be turned off by it. It's also not necessarily as preachy as some movies might get into. It is also under 90 minutes. So you think for the kids nowadays where everything has to be like TikTok, 90-second clips, it moves fast enough that you can follow it without having to rely on the gore or the shaky cam stuff of the early 2000s zombie movies. So
Absolutely.
it is probably a really good starting point. And I do think it's not my favorite zombie movie of all time. I'd have to really sit down and think about which one is, but it is something where now I could see it and I can go, yeah, maybe every year, every other year, if it pops on, it could become part of my sort of Halloween routine.
To finish things out, 90 is my favorite of the remakes and of the dead movies to really get someone in. Yeah, I recommend 90 absolutely over 68. Although I might almost, if I were to recommend a series of movies with this, I would say start with 1990. And if you really wanted to flash back to Dawn of the Dead 1977 or 78, it's worth it because it's better character work than the 2004 remake, which is really good. Don't get me wrong. But the older one has a lot more to say, and it's a lot more interesting in that regard, a lot more social commentary. Day of the Dead can absolutely be not avoided. It is probably in my top 3 zombie movies of all time. But also check out some of the other supplemental media. I've mentioned Diary of the Dead a few times. It is definitely worth checking out as well.
There's also Survival of the Dead, and then isn't there another one?
No, there is talk of one. Land of the Dead, it's worth watching once, but it does not hold up very well because the characters are paper thin, but it does take place, though no one's quite sure where it falls in the timeline, which is a little confusing.
All I remember of that one is Dennis Hopper just going, "Zombies, man."
They freak me out. And the second movie where Dennis Hopper and John Leguizamo team up, if you can name the other one, you're a dork. But yeah, so ultimately, like I said, these movies are fantastic. I'm always glad to talk about them. And I'm glad I've had a chance to talk about these with a variety of experts. Like, I think I've talked about this with James Rolfe. I think we talked about this even with Enrique at one point. And I got a chance to talk about this with you guys. So this is a fun topic. I'm really glad we got a chance to break this down. We're looking forward to bringing you more spooky content this month here on Twig. But hold on, I'm getting a transmission. We're going to have to take a break here on This Week in Geek, and well, we'll see what happens next.
This is CNN Breaking News.
The scientific community is focusing on the phenomenon, specifically on that trance-like state that seems to characterize the assailants. Clearly a behavioral disorder, but what could have caused so widespread and dramatic a condition as the one we are facing tonight? We've heard speculation on everything from the ozone layer and chemical weapons to voodoo, mysticism, and organisms from space. A biologist in Stockton, California, have released a report stating that the bodies of the recently dead are returning to life, driven by an unknown force that enables the brain to continue to function.
Are either one of these any good? Sir,
What?
are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Quick! Change the channel!
You're wasting your life making shit! Nobody cares! These movies are terrible!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.